Stand by SOT1.
Standing.
10 seconds. Ready, rollin'. Ready, SOT1.
Ready.
In 4, 3, 2, 1. Roll in.
From legendary Uncle Studios in beautiful Southern California, welcome to another edition of Work Comp Matters, the central location for you employees, you employers, and of course, we haven't forgotten about you damn independent contractors. And now, here's this week's edition of Work Comp Matters.
June 4th, 12:06 in the afternoon. Welcome to another edition of Work Comp Matters. We are brought to you by A1 Law, #1 computer management system, 818-357-4120 for the no strings attached, money back guaranteed, only $1 a day, A1 Law. Work Comp Matters is also brought to you by workcompcentral.com. That's the workcompcentral.com. If you want the #1 location for workers' compensation in both California and around the United States, check out the workcompcentral.com. They've got a free 7-day offer. And if you want to pick up their services, that's also only $1 a day. Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name's Steve Appell. I'm joined by the madman across the water, John Scalia, and my chief of staff, Dr. Mike Zyma. And as some of you may have felt, around 6:30, 7 o'clock last night, we had a 5.5 aftershock or earthquake. I don't know. It's from Ridge Crest, I guess about 130 miles from me. Mike was predicting the perfect storm, which if it was a 7, it certainly would have been. But 5.5 is strong enough. And, I find it fascinating that this earthquake basically came at the same time that I believe it is Herb Wesson. Let me see here. Los Angeles City Councilman Herb Wesson said he and other LA City Council members have introduced a motion that would reduce the operating budget of the Los Angeles Police Department for the coming year. Wesson is the first African-American president of the Los Angeles City Council, and the councilman said the proposal could cut about $100 to $150 million from the police department's 2020-2021 budget, which is currently at $1.86 billion. Folks, this, in my mind, for lack of better words, is suicide. There is no reason to cut any police budgets. Now, I know this is directly in response to the Black Lives Matters. And believe me, no, I'm not condoning police violence. I'm totally against it. I'm not condoning police brutality. I'm totally against it. But I've said it before, and I'll say it again. If you want to stop police brutality, just arm all of your law enforcement officials with a body cam and have it on the entire time they are at work. Period. End of story. I don't understand why body cams are turned off while you're at work. Sure, when you sign off, have it off. If you're off the clock, turn it off. Don't even be wearing it. But I think, in my opinion, all law enforcement officers should be wearing body cams, and they should be on while they are at work. I want to go to John Scalia, the madman across the water, retired 35-year workers' compensation attorney. He represented police and sheriffs for decades. John, you've heard what I think. What about you?
Well, I don't think having the body cam on would actually stop much. I mean, obviously, I think it's a good idea, but the problem is not what they do, but the problem is the protection they have when they're doing it. there's a doctrine called qualified immunity, which I was just looking up. And basically, it's semi-carte blanche for whatever conduct they engage in, no matter how outrageous and no matter what the damage is. The problem is not observing them. The problem is controlling them.
Well, I'll tell you, my understanding is that the current guidelines that are in place for law enforcement are, in my opinion, they don't need fixing. They just need to be enforced. I mean, there's no question that at least 5% of law enforcement officers, lack of better words, are bad and use excessive force because they go beyond the guidelines. Mike Zima, you heard what John said. You heard what I said. What's your take about, quote, defunding police departments, close quote, wearing body cams that are turned on 8 hours a day or whatever the shift is, and whether or not we simply have to enforce the existing rules?
Well, there are a number of questions there, but I believe that the rank and file police officers know who the bad actors are. They know who the bad guys are. I mean, after all, Chauvin was cited like 19 times for improper use of force. That's my understanding. And apparently he got away with it every single time. Now, I saw some posters yesterday on the news, okay? So it wasn't like Monday, I wasn't there. People are actually holding up signs saying to totally defund the police department.
Oh, it even gets better than that, Mike. Apparently, one of our esteemed United States congressmen, and there's at least one state senator, are in favor of defunding the police. But please continue.
Well, I mean, if that's not a recipe for anarchy, I don't know what is.
I think it's a recipe for me to start investing in guns and ammunition. That's what I think. But go ahead.
Oh, I heard.
Come on, guys. That's never going to happen. I mean, there's always somebody on a lunatic fringe, but let's get real. That's never going to happen. So why even talk about it? I mean, there's no way
they're
in the
talking
world.
about it. They're talking about it. That's why we're
nutcases. I mean, you're always going to have a nutcase talking about something, but you're not going to. I mean, it's not going to gain. It's not going to gain any.
John. Hold on, Mike. Let me respond, and then we'll go back to Mike, and then John, you can comment. John, this is what's not only being talked about on Work Comp Matters. This is being talked about all around the country. And by the way, I saw a news report that said the protests now are worldwide, but that's not the point. Right.
But defunding, no serious person is going to talk about not paying a police department. I mean, that's absurd.
Well, I'm seeing a lot of it.
What we're talking about is defunding, not paying. I realize there are protesters out there with signs that want to basically eliminate the police department. That's never going to happen. But John, my understanding is that up until 48 hours ago, the Los Angeles Police Department was going to get a budget raise between between 100 and 150 million dollars. Garcetti has come out, the mayor of Los Angeles, and says we are not going to increase. That is $100 to $150 million cut from the proposed coming budget. Now,
it's not really a cut, is it? It's not really a cut. I love the way people say, well, it's a budget cut because they're not going to add to what they already got. That's not really a cut in the real world. What you're saying is we're not going to increase their budget. I mean, come on, let's be fair.
Well, that's what the mayor came out and said. We don't know what's going to happen, but Mike,
what he said is we're not going to increase what you just assuming that what you said is exactly accurate, and it probably is. What he said is we're not going to increase the budget. So what? I mean, it's amazing to me that in America, they're more willing to tell school teachers to take pay cuts than they are to tell cops. I mean, that's incredible.
It's amazing. It's amazing to me that 8 days ago, we were all told how important it is not to assemble outside, be careful on the beaches, not allowed to go parks and walkways, stay home. And now you've literally got hundreds, tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people in the country that are assembling in groups of thousands. And we have the mayor of Los Angeles encouraging people to do it. Now, Mike, go ahead, take a minute or two, and then I'm going to go back to John.
Well, I would also like to say that when I was in my car yesterday going home, on the news station that I listened to, they interviewed a gun shop owner, and he literally said that if he could get 1,000 shotguns in the morning, they would all be sold by the time he closed his store. So there's a lot of proliferation of guns, and I certainly understand it. I've seen some stories about additional stories about looters being killed, etc. But yeah, I know that it's a lunatic fringe, but it was more than like 10 signs that I saw that said to defund the police.
That is what people are talking about. But go ahead, John.
Well, I mean, again, it's amazing to me that the Trump administration refers to all the demonstrations in Hong Kong as pro-democracy demonstrators. And when people who are demonstrating for the right to breathe in America, they're called rioters and anarchists. I mean, there
were rioters and anarchists, John. There were rioters and anarchists all over the place.
Of course, well, and that's exactly what the Chinese
why not call them rioters and anarchists if they are? Why not call them that?
Because those are a minority. That's exactly what the Chinese government says about the people demonstrating in Hong Kong. It's what every government says about people who demonstrate against the policy that they're demonstrating against.
That's not true. That's not true at all. The peaceful protests were peaceful, but there were a lot of them that were not peaceful, and so people are calling them not peaceful. What's wrong with that?
Well, there's nothing wrong with pointing out that they're not being peaceful, but there's plenty wrong with trying to say that the movement is unduly influenced by anarchists and rioters, when in point of fact, that's like saying that the 5% of cops that Steve talked about were bad. That's like saying, well, yeah, let's call them out. You don't hear them calling them out, do you? No, you don't, because everybody's in favor of the order. Everybody's in favor of the goose step in order. And so that's what happens. I mean, I've seen it. I mean, it's like, as one of my kids said to me the other day, gee, Dad, does this feel like 60s replay? Yeah, it does. Feels exactly like 60s replay.
Oh, yeah, sure. But no, there was a peaceful protest outside City Hall yesterday. Thousands of people. It got a bit dicey as the curfew came, but to me, it's excuse the metaphor, but I want to say it's black and white, and I'm not talking about race. I'm talking about there are lunatics who are burning things, and then there are peaceful people who are not.
Yeah, clearly.
What's the problem? Yeah, so what's the problem talking about lunatics that are burning things, calling them lunatics that are burning things?
Because the problem is that that's not what needs to be talked about. The problem is that if you understand why people are doing that, then you talk about the cause of the problem. You don't talk about the fact that some people are going to take it to an extreme and commit acts against property. I mean, let's face it. We're talking about demonstrations that were sparked all over the world by an unarmed guy being murdered by a cop in plain view with 3 other cops with their heads up their rear. I mean, come on.
That's true.
I mean, get a life. Get a grip and understand why that makes people mad, and understand why, if you have a color of skin that makes you a target when you walk on the street, you're going to be a little PO'd.
Well, yeah, but there's a difference between protesting peacefully and just burning things down.
Of course there is. But the point is that what's being burned down will be rebuilt. And that's not the discussion that needs to take place, but that's the discussion the Trump administration, who are nothing but goose-stepping fascists, want to make center stage.
My name is My name is Steve Appell. You're dialed into Work Comp Matters. We're brought to you by the workcompcentral.com. If you want the number one location for workers' compensation in both California and around the United States, check out the workcompcentral.com. We are also, Work Comp Matters is also brought to you by A1 Law, 818-357-4120 to experience the power of A1 Law. I led off today's Work Comp Matters with the fact that Herb Wesson, president of Los Angeles City Council, has proposed, and I'll say it more neutral, has proposed a freeze in the current Los Angeles Police Department budget of $1.8 billion. Apparently, the budget was supposed to be raised about $100 to $150 million for the 2020-2021 fiscal year. And it appears that the City Council, with Mayor Garcetti's blessing, is going to freeze the current budget. Let's go to our next story. Nearly 1.9 million people applied for United States unemployment benefits last week, the ninth straight decline since applications spiked in March, a sign that the gradual reopening of business has slowed the loss of jobs. The diminishing pace suggests that the job market meltdown that was triggered by the coronavirus may have bottomed out as more companies call at least some of their former employees back to work. I want to go to John. John, do you really think that businesses will continue to rehire employees and that potentially all of this protesting that's going on is a sign that social distancing may be abating?
Well, obviously the protests have created the fact that, caused social distancing to disappear during the protests. But probably it is. And no, I don't think the employment figures you cited show that people are coming back to work. I mean, most of the people who are displaced have already applied for unemployment. So to me, the fact that there was 1.9 or 1.7 million people last week still applying for unemployment indicates that the unemployment problem is massive. And I don't think any economist that I've seen expects all those people to be hired back that quickly.
Oh, by the way, just FYI, this story is from the Associated Press, AP, the gold standard of reporting.
Well, yeah, right.
Doesn't necessarily mean it's true. Doesn't mean it's true. I'm just telling you where I got it from.
No, I believe it. Well, you notice I didn't dispute the facts. What I said is the facts are 1.7 or 1.9 million people applied, but that's not a good thing because 40 million people have already applied. I mean,
Yeah, no. You're absolutely right. The number was up, I think, last week or whatnot to about 40 million people. But I'm going to go to the doctor now. They say before the protest started, before George Floyd died in the horrible way that he did, that we were going to have to keep social distancing. And I'm wondering if George Floyd, of course, not only marks the frustrations that John was talking about, police excessive force, but could this mark the end of social distancing? Doctor, what do you think?
Well, I certainly hope not. There are the epidemiologists that have got their ear to the ground, so to speak, right now, looking for spikes resulting from the protest, when there was no social distancing. I would imagine that once cooler heads prevail, and hopefully soon, that we will get back to the social distancing and continue to work to keep these numbers going down.
You know, if there are no spikes in the next 7 to 14 days, I think there are going to be some people that look pretty damn foolish.
That's really interesting, because I agree 100% with that. If there are no spikes, people are going to be going, where are the spikes? You're right.
Exactly. John, what do you think? Are people going to potentially look foolish? Look, just like we're all looking right now, okay?
Yeah, I think if there's no spikes, then obviously social distancing was overplayed. Although remember, California has pretty much had a low incidence of infections. I mean, given what it's like in the rest of the country.
Well, I presume you mean what it's like on the East Coast in Manhattan.
Yeah. Well,
Sure.
not only there's hotspots now in the Midwest where there's meat packing plants. I mean, California's done pretty well.
The numbers are still extraordinary, though. I mean, over 117,000 cases and 4,361 deaths. I mean, I don't mean to not say that's important, but it ain't anywhere near over 24,000 that New York has. Yep.
Yeah.
From the Sacramento Bee, one of my other gold standard sources, some people have described the COVID-19 test as akin to doctors poking and swabbing for brain cells. Now the Sacramento County COVID-19 testing site at Cal Expo is using a new, less invasive method to encourage people who were avoiding the test because of the potential discomfort. You know, they had a poll out last week, and I can't tell you who the poll was, but less than 50% of the people who were polled said they would not only take a test, but also take the serum if they developed a cure. 50% of the people just don't want to do it. By the way, so there's that. Mike, you got a new news story? We're coming to the end of the show.
Well, yeah, I am continuing to be interested in the economic impact of the COVID-19 thing, and California hospital revenue plummeted by more than a third in the first 4 months of the pandemic as costs to care for coronavirus patients rose, a shocking financial blow that threatens to raise healthcare prices, according to a recent report. The report, published Wednesday by the California Healthcare Foundation, said hospital revenue fell by a cumulative $13 billion from March to June, a 37% reduction from pre-coronavirus levels, as state and local shelter-in-place orders nearly eliminated surgeries and halved emergency room visits. Even with some patients now returning to hospitals as restrictions ease, dire financial losses persist. The report projected that beyond immediate financial losses, the state's economic recession could reshape healthcare as jobless Californians lose employer-sponsored coverage and shift to either Medi-Cal or stay uninsured, which means less reimbursement for hospitals. A lot of consequences.
And the last story before we end the show is Ventura County recorded 26 new cases and 1 additional death caused by coronavirus today. That was yesterday, as county officials allowed indoor shopping malls to fully reopen. The 26 positive cases represented roughly 3% of the 774 tests added to the county total. The county now sits at 1,190 positive cases of the virus out of 29,141 people tested, according to public health data. And that is from the Ventura County Star. Okay, John?
Okay. You want my segment or what?
No. Do you have any burning desires? Because I'm going to close the show.
Yeah, I saw William Barr on TV today, and I'll talk about that tomorrow. But I'm going to channel my inner Donald Trump and say, before Barr actually ate the Justice Department, did he have facial features?
Well, I thought he was twin sons of different mother with Elton John at birth, if you've ever seen recent pictures of both of them next to each other. My name is Steve Appell, and I want to thank you very much for joining this edition of Work Comp Matters. From Madman Across the Water, John Scalia, Chief of Staff, Dr. Mike Zyma, Scott Walton of Uncle Studio, and all the good people back at WorkCompcentral. My name's Steve Appell. We'll see you again tomorrow, hopefully at 12 noon, for another edition of Work Comp Matters.